Okay, well, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Brittany's getting set up, our host. And I can do a little recap over what we discussed last time, segue it into what we're talking about today. So last time we got together, our guests, Levi Randall and Jake Tiger, discussed American Indian historical interpretation from their perspectives and some of the ways that it benefits tribal communities and non-tribal communities alike. There is a lot of good information coming from them, about who does it correctly in their opinion, and maybe some places where we can improve things. But really, this is kind of like it's kind of like a deeper dive into this subject matter that just kind of gets pushed to the side in most of the eastern part of the United States, and typically at a convenience and or ignorance. American Indians are not engaged at those kind of events where historical interpretation is happening. So, what CFT is trying to accomplish. We are a theater. We are a performance arts organization, and at the same time, we also recognize that there's this opportunity here to help organizations that want to share their platforms with American Indian historical interpreters to grow that relationship and grow that that business side of our nonprofit to help accommodate those needs. So hopefully one of the outcomes that happens with these discussions is that we get some more organizations that want to engage with us and find out how, if they've got something they would like to highlight in their local history and culture based on American Indian tribal removal, and they'd like to share their platform with tribal citizens and historical interpreters that we work with, that we can build those relationships. So those were some of the things that we covered in the first discussion, and clearly there was a lack of women's voices in that first one, and so we wanted to quickly pivot over to a discussion to include the women and hear about why, in their opinion, women, even within the historical interpreters that are currently doing it the right way, why women are not highlighted as much as they can be in those roles. So our first guest is Belinda Patterson. She is joining us. Where are you joining us from, Belinda?
Currently I'm in Syracuse, New York, but I am from the Tuscarora Nation, which is about, it's close to Niagara Falls.
Cool. Well, really appreciate it. And Andy Jacobs, where are you at right now?
I'm in Arizona right now at the moment, but I'm from Raventown, Ontario, in Canada, Delaware Nation.
Delaware Nation. Okay, cool. Well, appreciate y'all joining us here today. I think we're really looking forward to a perspective that, like I said, is not highlighted enough. So, Belinda, if you would kind of tell us a little bit about your involvement with historical interpretation and some of the work you've done, and then we'll throw it over to Andy and we'll get started.
All right. Chwent wat na ru hot na giata ni wuu wak nana skaruda ekohewa gai dakra disna direchaks. That was a formal Tuscarora introduction. So my first encounter with reenacting actually was my kids were pretty little, and my sister and I had decided to venture to Old Fort Niagara, which is kind of in my backyard. And I remember being completely blown away that this was a thing. that reenacting was a thing, as intense as it is. And I remember seeing somebody dressed in a native portrayal, and I was like, okay, maybe we'll check this out a little. And it was kind of awkward for me because it was very visible that that person was not an Indigenous person, which is fine. But it did spark my interest a little about like what's going on here. And then fast forward, I don't know how many years after that, there was an opportunity to work at Old Fort Niagara as the native interpreter, in a full-time position. And at the time I was working in my community doing like social work, working with pregnant and prenatal women. So it was a completely different shift in career. I ended up getting the position and kind of had to build the program from the ground up. There wasn't a lot of, they had tried a couple different people prior to me that didn't work out so well. And so I just kind of had to figure out what needed to happen there. And keep in mind, like even growing up on territory, I wasn't too familiar with our own history or history in general. History was not my favorite subject by any means in school. I remember before my interview, I had to reach out and ask somebody who fought in the French and Indian War. So it was quite a change for me, but I was looking forward to diving in and just absorbing and trying to do the program justice, which I feel I did. I worked at Old Fort Niagara for about 10 years, just short of 10 years, and got to know a lot of people in the reenacting community, got to understand what it takes to have an authentic, genuine portrayal, which is, to me, one of the most important things, whether you're Indigenous or not, making sure you're authentic. So I currently did another complete career change. I'm an apprentice electrician, working for New York State, and I still do programs on the side, here and there. Next month I'll be at Gunundigan, doing a maple demo. So still active, still doing stuff.
Yeah, that's a great point about the historical accuracy and, just that the importance of being the expert. That's something that I know Jeremy Turner's talked about a lot, and it's so important that you're not just talking to somebody that has that citizenship or that identity, but they have the right information to make it happen. Brittany, our host, is here with us now, so I'm gonna jump off and leave it up to you. Brittany, welcome and take it away.
Hi, Kane. Thanks so much. Belinda, thank you so much for introducing yourself and kind of sharing with us some of your history. I would like to move the table towards Andy and ask you to introduce yourself and kind of share your backstory.
Okay, hello, I'm Andy Jacobs from Town, Ontario, Canada, Delaware Nation. I started this like 2 years ago to do reenactment. I enjoyed it very much. So it was hard for me growing up in school, taking like Native studies, failing at Native studies, as she had mentioned earlier about history too. It was hard for a non-Native to actually sit there and listen to a non-Native teach us about our own history and stuff, and actually, which isn't right. So anyway, I would even fail Native studies, but which I didn't care. It was hard for me to go to the museums, to check out the museums, because not too many, you've never seen too many Natives in there. So I wouldn't go. I went years without going. And then finally 2 years ago, I went with my mom somewhere, and we actually went to a museum and we went to make the Delaware skirts. So it was an awesome experience for me. I just kept going back, meeting people. So the people that I've met in the last 2 years, I've worked in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York now. It's still going. Mine is mostly about learning my own history, other people's history, and be able to teach it. But as I'm teaching it, I'm still learning a lot, and I have a lot to learn. So I'm so excited about doing it because I didn't get to do this growing up. Didn't get the proper, so where I'm able to teach my own kids and my grandkids in Nishik.
Thank you, Andy. That's really awesome. And to say, for my personal experience, my name is Brittany Hall. I am a board member for Caesars Ford Theater. I have been on the board for a little over a year now. And my experiences is very fresh and new. I have only participated in one event with ourselves over at Caesars Ford Theater over in Xenia. And that was really great presentation and experience in doing that theater production. And so those are my experiences, and I'm just always wanting to continue to grow and learn and to work and to be able to meet Belinda and Andy and to experience this together, I think is really remarkable. But I wanted to also ask a question, and that's kind of like where the title of our presentation and our discussion point is, where are the women? A lot of times we hear about theater reenactments and telling the truth, telling our truth as Native people, Indigenous people, but mostly we hear of men and men leaders, but where are the women from our histories? Where are their truths? And so that's what I kind of wanted to focus on today. And I wanted to ask, and Belinda and Andy, why do you think this culture and this lifestyle and what we're trying to share and talk about, why is it so male dominant?
Okay, I'll go.
Okay, thanks.
So I mean, reenacting is kind of a man's world. The whole world is just, it's all about men. Primarily, military, the military fields, and I do think there are the women who do like a non-native portrayal. They're often focused on baking or soap making or laundry. Like those are kind of and some sewing. And we kind of do the same thing, but I feel like for us, it's a little bit different because I feel that in our culture, women are held at with a different I don't know how to say that, a different level of voice. Our in our culture, women have a stronger voice, and I think that is definitely something that could be highlighted more at events in our communities. But I do think that an Indigenous woman's perspective is definitely valuable in reenactments, explaining our role, explaining like the child rearing, and it's just a completely different perspective than what a man would do, a Native man or a non-Native man in reenacting. I think it's definitely something that needs to be brought more to the front.
Thank you. Andy?
Well, my perspective on it is because, well, from long time ago, I think the women were the ones to get the men to make the decision, and it's almost like lost touch, and like, but the women are starting to come forward now. You see more people doing this and speaking up their voices and stuff like that. That's what the women need to be doing, like us. I think it's great that we're having this panel and it's just women. I've never been on a panel with just women, but I belong to a women's group. So again, voices and things are starting to change in a good way, and wish it was like more like this. But we're getting there slowly but surely.
Thank you. My next question I wanted to ask, what happens when historical interpretation goes poorly, and who do you think is out there doing it right at the same time?
What are you meaning that it goes poorly? Like when somebody else is doing it?
Possibly, or when history is not being told accurately, or by people who are basically just red-faced.
Well, yeah, So that's the biggest thing for me, is when somebody else is doing our even songs and dances, the interpretation. Like when I said growing up, I wouldn't go to a museum if they're doing that. And then now I have where I've seen in the last 2 years were non-natives trying to be us. And it's like, no, I was upset with it when I first seen it, because actually sitting down seeing it, and then the more I see it, the more it's not so upsetting. It's like, how do we educate? How do we change it? How do we stop this? So that's what my goal is, because I didn't know what my goal was, and then now it's been coming to me in probably about the last 3 weeks, is doing program with other people and being able to see this more, being educated myself, where things can change. So right now, start to put my voice out there more. For the past 2 years, I've sat back and watched and seen what people do, and seeing where we're trying to stop it. And it's basically a big group from all different tribes. So again, there's another, just trying to stop it, and being where it's us doing it. We are doing our songs, because it's disrespectful, and we've been disrespected so long. I'm 50 years old, and it's been disrespect for so long. So it's like, now it's time to put it back out there. But it's all about educating ourselves and learning, and be able to teach what we've learned. And you should.
Belinda?
I would say the same thing. I also I feel that there's a lot of times there's like a gap that is missed when it's coming from like a, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but when it's a non-Indigenous person, I feel that there's a gap that just can't be bridged when you're portraying a Native impression. And I feel that it, just because, also on the contrary, just because you're an Indigenous person doesn't mean you're super qualified to be out reenacting also, because maybe you're not well versed in what you're covering or portraying or whatever. So there are pluses and minuses to all perspectives of this, right? So I just think, like, with poor reenacting, particularly with women and the Indigenous role, it's, did you do the research? Is your clothing proper? To me, that is important. Do you know your place? Like, what are you competent to say? What are you incompetent to say? And I feel that that's something that needs to be addressed for sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And that just kind of goes into my next question. So it's election year. Politics are always continuously going and changing. So with that being a challenge in our society and Native Americans not having the representation that should be there, how do you think that's going to be with the public and the pushback with American Indian interpretations? Belinda or Andy? I'll just pick back and forth.
Okay, say that again. Sorry.
Yeah, with politics and, it's election year, politics are challenging and changing. How do you think that is for the public and the pushback that we have with Native American interpretation in the work?
Well, I think because politics, we still don't have enough people on our side. And that's the biggest thing. And that's the biggest, how would you call that? Because you don't often see politicians come out to see us, whatever we're doing. And that should be the biggest thing is like even mayors or anything like that don't come and see us. But when I was in Pennsylvania last year, we did have a meeting with one of the politicians and he did come out to see us. That's the first time I've seen it in my 2 years. And I was very happy that he even came out, he spoke. So which I think was a good accomplishment because I've never even seen it. And sometimes like even our own chiefs don't show up to our things, like just or even reenactments and even in our own chief and councils, they don't show up. So that's not even setting a good example. How are we going to get the politicians out there to support us when some do? I'm not saying all don't, but as anything that I've been at, I've never seen none of my chief and council out there. So I don't know if it's been the same for you, but again, like educating our politicians, but again, it's got to start with our own chief and councils because that's why they're elected, and they're same with our politicians are elected. But until they can come and do the research themselves and come out to be seeing us and where they should be proud of us and seeing what we're doing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I really like that, Andy. Where are our tribal leaders in this work? I know for myself, my tribal leaders I don't see at events, but also with myself not being where my tribe is located at, it's also hard to kind of see that firsthand experiences too. But whenever I do real life reenactments, I don't see that support. And that's a good point, is where is that support and leadership within our communities, our hometowns, tribal communities, and how can we grow that, or how can we encourage? Because how are we supposed to tell the truth in the history? So I totally agree with that. What are your thoughts, Belinda?
I just think anything pertaining to politics, everything has its place. And relating to reenacting, like I don't think it's as Andy said, on a lot of people's radar. And we don't have the support that we need, not only as reenactors, but as Indigenous people as a whole. And I think that it just gives more reason for our own people to represent ourselves and stand stronger together on many platforms.
Yeah. So what are the benefits for us as women to do reenactments and sharing that history? What are the benefits of that?
My biggest thing is my thing is education. So it's educating. We're educating because we are the teachers. Regardless if it's the men can learn and they teach, but when it comes down to it, my thing is the women learn. The women are the teachers because they have their kids and then they teach them. Any kids that come over, and like women will take on that role of teaching. So we can get more women into it and start with the kids young, like get them in there and get them doing this. My biggest thing is getting my grandkids in there. I have My one granddaughter's 2 years old. She's already been on a couple. And I want to get her started so that way she knows she's that woman to take on those roles and responsibilities of teaching and learning.
Yeah, I would say the same. One of the biggest benefits is being able to learn, like as I said before, history was never my favorite topic. And then in my path in reenacting, it's been one of the most humbling experiences that I've had, to learn not only like your own history and history in general, but to be able to public speak and educate others and your own community. And that's kind of something that I do in presentations. I have like a very strict open door policy where I would say 80% of the presentations, you get a lot of people who want to ask questions that have nothing to do with your presentation. And so that's something that I express and I will continue to express as giving people the opportunity to ask you things that they may be uncomfortable asking, and creating an atmosphere where they're comfortable asking those questions, and sometimes it's those basic questions like, do you wear these clothes every day, or stuff like that. You still get those once in a while, and I honestly enjoy all kinds of questions because sometimes people hold on to those for years before they feel comfortable asking. So I just like to express like, ask me, ask us, don't feel uncomfortable. That's probably been one of the most beneficial things is creating that space for people to feel comfortable.
Yeah, very well. I wanted to change direction a little bit. I wanted to kind of get down to the nitty-gritty of the truth of women and interpretation. What are our limitations of why women are not as active in this? And what are the struggles that we have to go through on a day-to-day basis to even try and do this work? And I want to know the truths out there.
Well, I think for my area, for limitations, but again, it all leads back to education. It's educating. See, I guess we are and where I grew up, they even have a reenactment close to us. Never been to it. I would like to go now just because I know what I'm doing somewhat, and I would like to go there and see. But again, like we didn't grow up with none of that. We didn't grow up even because Delaware, we didn't grow up with our ceremonies, our culture. We had to go to other cultures to do that. So still basically learning anything. Like a little bit is better than nothing. We're like in the schools now, we have the language in there. We've lost our language, and where it's the women teaching it in there. But yeah, I think a lot. We lost a lot of things, and it's trying to get that back. So, who actually wants to do it? So getting more and more people involved for my reserve, and then my son's reserve, trying to get them involved too. Where a little bit is here and there, but again, it's like just keep talking it and keep educating because it's hard.
What are some of the things that are hard?
Getting people out, and again, like funding and stuff like that. But again, like with another group, I've had 2 more women join for last year, and then they joined the meeting the other day. So I was like really happy because no matter what, that's still new 2 more people, 2 more women, and they had come and brought two little girls. So again, that's more women coming out. But for me, I see that as an accomplishment because that was 4 more, and they're females. like 2 little girls, 2 older girls, and the other one's third in her 40s. So it's about out there talking, and when you're, because word of mouth goes around faster than anything. But if you're sitting there, even at an event or just visiting, so I let them know what I'm doing, and they're interested. So that was a big accomplishment for me. That's 2 more than what was there. I was 1 more than that was there from 2 years ago, where I start joining with my mom. So just educating people.
Yeah, I was going to share with my journey and doing reenactments. I never had the education, from an early age. Our Native American history was not even taught. And, I grew up in a very urban location down in Missouri, and I just never received that education and being connected until my adult years, and taking the time and the effort to grow and to learn, and meeting people from my tribe, and then finding family members, which have been great, and just really embracing that and trying to do as much as I can for myself and my son as well. But I know for myself personally, the challenges that I have seen over the last year is, especially for those who are women who do have a child or more than one child, is that we have to do a lot of stuff at home, right? We have to do a lot of planning to take care of not only the household, but to also take care of our child and make sure that none of their needs are forgotten about. An example is when I went to Ohio, I did take my son with me. And so making sure I had you secure the funding, which thankfully Caesars Ford helped with that, to, take the plane and make sure all of our stuff is packed and do the car rental and all that. But not only that actual travel, but also everything at home to make sure that my house was taken care of, and, my animals, because I like to have a little urban farm here in Kansas. And so I had to make sure that was all taken care of. And so I think those are some of the limitations that we see as women, is not only our work life, but also our home life and our, spiritual and mental health too, as well. And so that's something I've experienced and learned over the year, is the struggles that maybe these are limitations that women don't participate because of those.
Hello.
Belinda?
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for joining us.
I think it's a combination, for all of those things, and also having the proper the gear, your own personal, or if you're being provided the equipment for reenacting, and then also like just basic life that you have to plan around, as Brittany was saying, making accommodations. Like, I'm at a wrestling state tournament right now, 3 hours from home. So you just kind of have to figure out like your schedule. That's probably, juggling everything. And then just feeling comfortable enough to get out there and try something new, kind of. So.
Yeah, thank you. So with the benefits, what I'm hearing from what we've been talking about is that we do have positivity on doing real life reenactments, but what are the benefits that maybe our tribal communities could have or see from us doing this work and encouraging it? And then also, what are the benefits for non-tribal citizens?
I think for the tribal citizens is actually coming out to see what we're doing. Again, our tribal leaders, because then they're the ones should be taking it back to the communities, and then same with when we are out, the non-Indians, I'm gonna say, but because they ask questions, and the ones that are asking questions, they generally want to know, and you can find some people out there that do their actual history. They can sometimes come. I had a couple times where someone was educating me some more because they were doing their history. And again, sitting there talking to them and trying to talk to the ones that will listen or have something where you're able to get someone's attention. So again, like some people like to travel, some don't. I love traveling. So that's a big thing. My kids are grown. So sometimes I don't have those limitations, whereas I would have years ago when I was a single mom raising my kids. And that was a big thing. But and then I said like in our area we have reenactment, but that wasn't an option for me to take my kids there. Wasn't an option for them to learn there because if I'm not learning, how are they going to learn? But see, it'd be different now, whereas I know people going places. My kids are already grown, so I can do it with my grandkids.
Thanks, Andy. Belinda?
I would say it's the same thing as just education, having the opportunity to learn, not just like about your own history, but like native history in general. And I think that is something that's really valuable for both our own people and non-native people. I have found some of the most genuine, sincere historians that are non-natives in my experiences through reenacting. So, and it's because they're educated. I've also found the exact opposite. So it's just the education is probably the best benefit.
Awesome. Ladies, are there programs that you are aware of that would help highlight women in history for education purposes? Or would you like to do any programs that would help encourage and enlighten that?
I think that would be the thing. I don't know of any programs that for women, just the only one, well, I guess I can't say that because like I said, I'm part of a program and it's just women. So again, we're educating ourselves. And then we do, yeah, so I guess the same thing. We have the women's group from the 5 different Delaware nations that we get together twice a year. So one is where we just get together and we're learning, and another one we get to bring somebody. And so far, we've brought different people, and the people that we brought have been interested. So, and again, it's all about learning, education.
Belinda?
I don't know of any programs like specifically for women. I think it's just like each historic site itself would have to reach out and ask for representation. And on that note, I will also say I am finding more and more sites that are seeking an Indigenous representation, and I think that's really amazing to see. And I also think places like Caesar's Ford Theater are great avenues to fulfill that role. Yeah, I don't know, unless you're part of like somebody in a reenacting group. I don't know of any programs that are just like, get out there and experience history at this level. But I also want to say, as somebody who was in charge of getting representation, oh boy, at a site, sorry. I think it is vital to have somebody that is connected to a community that can get people brought in. And there have been many times where I would have people, I would just ask random people, totally random people from my community to come and play lacrosse, and just as they get there, cut a strip of a breechclout and, and have them go, which is, that alone is probably a very memorable experience for somebody who's never done reenacting before. Not being able to wear anything else but that little strip of cloth is probably one of their top memories, I would say. But it's important to provide those people with something. Like, I would call people up and say, hey, can you come do this program for me and I'll give you a free lunch. Just being able to accommodate, or being able to give them something for coming to participate. I think that's a really big deal. And I was able to get a lot of people, and also going to pick them up myself. It's always tough to get people in general, let alone women. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your answers. I think that's great. Can't think of anything myself of, women programs or programs that do feature women, but there could always be something that starts, how as women do we come together to help bring out and share those true stories. And I wanted to ask the group if there are any questions. That we are taking questions for the panelists and myself. If you want to come off mute and ask your question or put it in your chat box, that would be totally great as well. Kane has a question. Do your tribal leaders support historical interpretation? I will go ahead and start with that one. For my tribal leaders, I am not sure because I've never asked them personally, but you know what? It's a good one. I will ask next time I see them in person. I'm not totally sure about mine. I feel like probably not, but I want to look at the positivity and maybe that one day they will.
Hello?
I'm gonna say that with mine that what you call that we're gonna go start asking them and to see about them showing up. We were just talking about this, and we'll be able to, and then be able to get the other reserve involved too. Where I'm trying to get my son involved in doing what I'm doing, and it's trying to bring the leaders out too.
I don't know that my community's tribal government doesn't not support it. I have asked our council to come to certain events, which, those who could make it would show up. So I think the support is there if you ask for it, in terms of presence. And I don't believe I've ever asked for financial support for reenacting. So I think the support is there if you ask.
Thank you. If anyone wants to come off mute, feel free to go ahead and ask your questions or put in the chat box. I think someone started to unmute themselves. I do see that we have quite a few females here on the Zoom. Do we have anyone that would like to ask the all-women panel?
I just sent a message. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead.
I've been playing with these. I'm a lot older than all of you, so I'm having some issues with the buttons. How much do you involve the local media with the presentations and representations that you're doing? That's one question. The other is, how many of you belong to your local tribes organization. In other words, as they would say when I was a kid, you're a card-carrying Indian. My mother was a half-breed, so I've been involved with Native Americans all my life from different perspectives, as a student, as a parent, as a daughter, as I've got a lot of history in terms of it's documented, it's written. I moved to Ohio a number of years ago, and one of the things that I was told was, whatever you do, if you apply to a certain school, don't write that you're Native American. There are a number of Native American tribes in this country that are matriarchal. The rules are set by women. So there's all kinds of things. I heard the question earlier. What can we do? Well, my response has always been, you can do anything you want to do. Anything. There are government people, there are people in the government that support us. I have a cousin who's working at the Native American Center at MIT. You just have to decide what you want to do. I tried a couple months ago to connect with some people who used to be down here, that we took loads of things, books, skateboards, all kinds of things to different tribes across the United States a couple of times a year. They're not here anymore. But the big thing for me is, first off, I'm retired now. I'm supposed to be. And the big thing for me is, don't be quiet. Don't be silent. Don't let people tell you what you can't do. Just do it.
Yeah,
You know?
thank you so much. I just want to go back. What was your first question that we could answer for you again?
How much of them? I just looked up. I wasn't even aware of Caesar's Ford Theater. So how much media is brought in? Do you have someone that handles your media when you do something? When you do a presentation, or do you have a thing online so that when you're getting ready to do a presentation or a representation, do you put out an all call?
Yeah, for sure. I know with Caesar's Ford Theater, if we have an event going on, then we definitely post on social media, and we like to promote that. And I know for any event, that social media is the go-to place for nowadays, and posting on websites and newspapers. I know that's a good way to get word out, especially in my hometown, in my area. Andy and Belinda.
Mine is mostly like social media. The media sometimes will be there, depends on what museum is putting it on. But you do have media coming around. I don't invite them personally. They're just there, but they want to speak to us, so we speak to them.
Do you utilize the university here, Wright State's Native American Center? Do you work with them through them, or ask the kids to come, or the people to come and participate?
Where is that? Where is that located? I've never heard of it.
It's in Dayton, Ohio.
No, I haven't heard of it.
Wright State University has a Native American Center on campus, and Ohio State University, which is 65 miles from here, 75 miles from here, has a Native American club, if you will, on campus.
So the state university does, and what is the other one?
Ohio State and Wright State, WRIGHT, like Wright brothers. There was some research done a number of years ago that the person is thinking about following up with it, having to do with the education of women. The whole research was done on the education of women. Some of the questions I heard, there are the Smithsonian puts on 4 presentations or 6 presentations a year on television that has to do with Native American women. Native Peoples Magazine does a lot with Native American women, especially with what they're doing now. I realize a lot of it is garments and utility items, but it's getting attention. It's finally getting attention.
Nice. Belinda?
So
I think
I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that I'm not criticizing. Please don't take it as that. We are our strongest ally. We are our strongest group. We're only as strong as our voices are. And like I said, the first 20 years here in Ohio, I had to be quiet if I wanted to work. I had to be quiet. Well, I don't have to be quiet anymore.
That's one thing. I'm not quiet.
My mother wasn't quiet either. My mother wasn't quiet either. She used to come here to Ohio and excuse me, visit her grandchildren, and she would come in a native dress. She would go to the schools. You go into the schools.
I think that's like, say, well, like for me, I know I've only been doing this for like 2 years. So like again, I'm still learning. I don't know where all the places are. I go to one and then all of a sudden I'm in for another one. So they're going to different places, and whereas like say for my history, we got pushed up to Canada.
Mhm.
So again, learning to where to come back to, and that's why I said Ohio and Pennsylvania and New York. So it just keeps adding to it. But again, not knowing that, say for 48 years, and then slowly getting more contacts, more people, being able to do more things. But again, if we don't have that and have that education to learn, and don't take that time to learn, where I said I've only done this for 2 years. So again, just trying to find the contacts.
Did you know Selma Walker?
No.
Okay, she was out of South Dakota. She lived in Columbus, Ohio. She used to run the Indian Center there. There still is an Indian Center, but their focus now is a different tribe, and their only focus right now is to gather enough money to buy property. So, but Selma used to.
Need to move forward. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I want to get to Belinda's answer. Thank you.
Sorry.
What am I answering? Sorry.
No worries. Andy, do you want to finish recapping?
Do what we just talked about?
Yes.
Well, what she's asking about the media, and how do we
Okay.
get how about the media being there, or do we invite them? I personally, I don't invite nobody from media. They're just there. And
Yeah, I personally don't reach out to the media for coverage on anything that I attend. 90% of the time when I'm doing a program, it's for an organization. So I would assume that organization has either decided to or not decided to reach out to the media for their own coverage. So that's, I mean, I'm personally not calling Channel 4 to come check us out, but if they're there, they're there. And, you know, when, I don't think any one of us is afraid to speak on behalf of what we're doing. So
Yes. I do know that in Ohio, when we had our event last May, WYSO is the local radio station that came and interviewed a couple of us, myself included, our vice president and Kane, and that was really great to experience that, help promote and to help the true history of people who are from federally recognized tribes. And I think sometimes we experience more each day of what individuals might not have that true lineage, that true connection and true history of who our families are from and what our families had to struggle through. to get to where we are today. And that's what we find ourselves in is, you know, our correspondences with pretend Indians. So, you know, for those who are not from a federally recognized tribe, it's to also educate and not pretend that you know and understand what we have to go through on a day-to-day basis. Andy, do you have any insights?
No, you said it all.
Well, you just experienced it. I see some in the chat box. Paul Suppley, sorry if I incorrectly said that. In my opinion, you are living historians who attend and participate in reenactments. Reenactments tend to be specific historical events. Wonderful ladies, and please keep at it. Thank you, Paul, for your kind words. And you got 2 hearts. Awesome. Kane, do people come up to you and tell you they are American Indians at these events? That's a good question.
I can give you one from last year. I was at an event and a lady come up to me and she told me she was Delaware. And I was like, okay, so I'm ready to listen to her story. But I'm asking questions at the same time because she's like, I'm Delaware. And I was like, okay, from which tribe? Because there's 5 of us. And she said, she brought up her grandfather was. I said, well, maybe a name could help me. I said, that way it can direct you in the way that you're supposed to go if you want to learn. And she goes, my grandpa didn't go to residential school. And I was like, well, mostly everybody did. But I was like, some of us got pushed up to Canada, 2 different Delaware tribes, and there's 3 in the US. And she said, I said, well, again, ask do you have a last name? She goes, I don't know it. And I was like, this is your grandfather. And I said, maybe you need to go find the records. First of all, you need to get a last name. Then maybe you can get connected. She was just arguing with me, and I just kept asking the questions, and she's getting madder and madder at me. And I was like, she goes, I'm just going to go to Oklahoma. I said, but you go to Oklahoma, no matter what band office you walk in, or what tribal office you walk in, they're going to ask you the same questions as me. Oh, that's what she said. He got left behind. So he was left behind in Pennsylvania like years ago. And I was like, none of us got left behind. That's how we made it to Canada. So she just kept giving me excuse after excuse. And I was like, I'm just there to listen and educate. But I'm trying to help her. She just gets mad and storms off. Never seen her again. But I was like, and that's her thing. I'll just go to Oklahoma. Well, they're going to ask the same things.
Yeah, I think maybe a little bit more when I was younger in college, of people knowing that, you know, I live in Lawrence, Kansas, and, you know, here we have Haskell Indian Nations University, and people running into me and be like, oh, you're Native? I'm like, yeah. I go to Haskell, and they're like, oh, that's so cool. And then the usual stories, my great grandmother, this, that, or they talk about like, well, I have some Indian in me. I'm like, really cool. Okay, what tribe? And they would not know. Like, well, unfortunately, they would say some, you know, stereotypical like Cherokee princess. We all know how that is too. And then we're even being called Pocahontas at the bar a couple times in college, so we know what that life is like too. And I think education is a word I hear that we keep coming back to, is we have to educate, or we can just be polite or just dismiss them. So, Belinda, do you have any insight?
I think people who share that with you, that they have some sort of connection, they're just trying to make a connection. And I usually, for me personally, like I try to validate their connection and move on quickly. Because a lot of times in those cases you get sucked into a really long story. So just try to I don't know, encourage people to right back to education, learn your history then, and you know, so I don't know.
Yeah, and that could be with even just friends, or partners that we choose in life that aren't Native American. Um, that was something that we didn't talk about in our pre-meeting the other day, but I think about being a woman doing this work and dating those who are not Native. I did date, for example, a few years ago, a gentleman who was African American, or, he is not past. And I think one of the funny things that led up to one of our main breakup reason is he did not take the time to learn about me. He wanted me to teach him everything about my culture and my history. And I think the funny realization that came to it was he said, "Well, I didn't know you wanted me to learn about Native Americans." I said, "Dude, that should not even be a thing. You should want to learn." So I think that's something that we have to navigate as women as well. And being a parent or just being a woman in general and living life. Andy and Belinda, any insight on that?
I know, um, I think, like, I live on territory, and um, I think I've only dated native men. But my fiance, um, he knows the roles. We'll just say that. That's all I have about that.
Probably about the same. Just like, I don't know. You guys summed it up.
Yeah, I see Xavier wrote a question in the chat box, and I'll go ahead and read it. Is there any suggestions to Native or even non-Native men to better support and raise Native women in historical interpretation events? It's a very good question.
Maybe just listen to them.
I agree. Listen to the women.
Whether we're right or not.
Right.
We are always right. I'm just kidding. That's all I tell my son. He'll ask, "Mom, how do you know this?" And I said, "I know everything." But I think listening is a good one, and to truly listen and to take the criticism, the positive and negative criticism in anything, I think is important, and to really understand and to grow from it. That's what I think. David wrote, "I'd love to help anyone who needs clothing." Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone loves support. We should all support one another. Are there any other questions from the audience? Miss Sarah wrote, "How would women get involved?" That's great. We kind of hit on that a little bit earlier, but I think that's a good one to kind of close with, or get to closing with, is how can we get more women to be involved? It's a good question.
I know
think this
for
one-
me,
Sorry, go ahead.
I sometimes you kind of have to just get people to any extreme to come participate. And I would say 95% of the time, once people get there and they get through the discomfort of putting new clothing on and having to deal with the public and whatever the program is that they're doing, 95% of the time people fall in love with it. I have had a couple women from different communities come and support, just providing them with clothing, and they usually get sucked right into it, which is an amazing thing, because not only are you getting sucked into that, you're also getting sucked into, again, the education and the learning experience of it. But to get women involved, I would say we would just have to advertise in our communities more, or to people who aren't in a community who want to become involved. I'm all about suckering people to get to come out and play. Sometimes you just gotta get them there. So it's definitely a challenge sometimes to get people from territories to come out and participate. So any insight into that would be nice to hear. So
May
besides
I
suckering
restate my
them into
question?
it.
Sorry to interrupt you. May I
No,
restate my
besides,
question?
yeah.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, so how would somebody get on the list in order to participate?
You're on the list.
Give us your contact.
But again, it's just knowing, I guess, like even being here, you're being part of this group. So then, like, say if you wanted to, then I'd say then you'd say, like, you get a hold of somebody. How would you get involved? For somebody that doesn't know, because everybody's got a contact at some point, and then getting hold of that contact and saying, how would I get involved, or asking about details, what is that you have to do.
Okay, because I have a group that would probably be a group of women that would probably love to participate.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Well, one of the things that anyone can do, however you identify as male or female, and we're talking about women right now, how we can get involved is if you're interested to go to Caesars Ford Theater website. I just posted that in the chat box. So you can go to that website. And we also have a casting that Stephanie and I shared, and that will take you to our website to the casting link. Anytime we have something that we are looking for participants, put it in there. So what you'll see, if you'll scroll down, you'll see a picture from one of our recent events back in October with one of our board members. And then if you scroll down, you will see a spot for your name. Just type your name in there, your phone number, your email to be best contacted at, and then you can put a little message in there and also attach your headshot and then hit submit, the blue button. So that is one way that you can start getting involved with Caesars Ford Theater. I know that for this and then other events, anytime there's a casting call, usually you can kind of see that on social media is the big thing to see for other events as well. So that's a good question on how to get involved. Do we have any last questions or comments? Linda, thank you for sharing. Of course. Thank you for attending today, Linda.
Well, I'd like to say initially to everybody who came to watch us do this. This is the first time for me to do a Zoom panel with women. I've only other time I've done a panel, but again, we've always done opening, closing, like ceremonial type discussions. But this is the first time for me, so thank you for everybody that attended. And thanks, Kane, for asking me.
Thank you, Andy, for your closing. Linda, do you have a closing that you'd like to say?
No, it's just really great to have the interest in this topic, and yeah, Kane for the invite, and look forward to seeing some positive progress from this meeting. So now
And I just wanted to say to Andy and Belinda, thank you both for coming. This has been great. I really think that the audience, we've had some great interactions. And I really appreciated everyone typing in the chat box, coming off mute and speaking. And I just really look forward to seeing the growth within these two amazing women, and to see where are the women, to kind of see women really start to step up and empower in Caesars Ford Theater and also in real life reenactment of Native Americans, and letting our truth and our history be told, and to always be reminded that if we don't know something, there's never a dumb question. Always ask, because that's what we should be doing, is educating each other. And that's one thing that we kind of talked about a lot, is that education and learning and hearing from those who are from federally recognized tribes, and to knowing the truth and to not whitewash everything. And so I wanted to close with that, and that I see in the chat box, thank you. Some people said thank you to us. Marilyn, where are the recordings for Caesars Ford Theater? We can go. Thanks, Stephanie. It's that link for our films. And then also for a part of the series, we have our final part. Our first part was a few weeks ago, and then we will be closing with Kane and Jeremy talking about the Ellen Eckert culture in Ohio. And so, Kane, can you share when that date will be for everybody?
We don't have it nailed down yet, but it's definitely going to be in no less than see, Jeremy's a celebrity, so he's hard to get on the calendar. But we're looking at next month, and probably towards the end of the month. So we'll update everyone on our Facebook page about when that'll be. I'll try to give everyone as much notice as possible. The theme for that final one is going to be, and we anticipate to do more of these too. So, but for this 3-part series, the final one, Jeremy and I are going to discuss what I call the Allen Eckert culture here in Ohio, as it pertains to, like, specifically Shawnee history and Shawnee culture from the 18th century, and the way Ohioans post-Shawnee removal have kind of just turned it into something that's mythological and full of fiction, whether it be novels or historic outdoor drama, what have you, pageantry. We're going to discuss how that affects Shawnee citizens today, and how CFT is trying to uplift the standards, of those practices, to include the voices of Shawnee people. Imagine that, right? So, we'll have that on our Facebook page. Look for that in the next week or two. In the meantime, go to cftohio.org, our new website, to check out what we're planning, and some more updates, especially if you want to get involved in historical interpretation. It's not just casting for theater projects. We're looking for people, especially women of citizens of federally recognized tribes, to get involved in this programming. So please visit that website, cftohio.org. I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Kane. Again, everyone, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and do this all-women panel. I really enjoyed it, and you all have a great day. Yahweh.